Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022, and tonight I'll be sharing true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all shows, along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, and that is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions, or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. So the plan is tomorrow will be another part of the H.P. Lovecraft, the complete fiction review. I've got 4 stories set aside for that to talk about. Thursday, as long as I get back home in time, there will be another paranormal news show. And then that'll be it until Saturday, where we will have an extra show. And at the usual time, talking about the Grim Reaper. So that should be interesting. And I have a special guest down there with me as well. So I believe that covers everything for now. And I can get to the stories here. So let's see here. Alright. I have 4 stories here for you all today. I found these on early Sunday morning. So I haven't looked at them really since then. So hopefully I won't stumble through the reading too badly. So, but here we go. This first one says, I don't normally talk about this just because it freaked me out, but when I was around 11, I had gotten a new wardrobe. I was really excited about it, as I needed somewhere to store my own clothes. The first few nights were fine. Then, as I was getting into bed, I felt something was off a few hours. I'm sorry, there's no punctuation here. I felt something was off. A few hours had passed. It was midnight. I wasn't able to get any sleep, so I played games on my tablet until I heard knocking from the inside of the wardrobe. I pinched myself to make sure I was awake. I just lay there, facing the wardrobe. I could see the wardrobe moving from the inside. The door moving open and shut, only slightly, so I couldn't see the inside. I finally got some strength to get up and run to my parents' room. And I asked them to check the wardrobe. Nothing was in there. It was empty. Till this day, I keep my wardrobe doors wide open, and I don't hear it anymore. I had spoken to a friend about it. She thought a spirit might have been stuck in there. Who knows? And that's where that story ends. And yeah, it's really, I really wonder about that. If for whatever reason something was stuck in there, and then opening the doors, maybe let it out, or let them out. Maybe that was a good thing. Doesn't sound like there was any other activity, so that might have been a good thing. And I don't blame the person for keeping those doors open after that. Seems like it stopped the activity, which is good. So, neat story. It does sound like maybe, possibly something or someone was in there, and either just wanted attention, even if it was just that once, or like the writer kind of suggests, or what their friend suggested, maybe there was someone in there that needed to get out. So, neat little story there. You hear about that fairly often, the idea of objects, especially older objects, especially older objects that have um, that people have close ties to, about their energy or even in some cases their spirit connecting to the object and then having activity around that object until, well, who knows? Sometimes for years, sometimes just for a little while. Um, Again, too many unknowns to really figure out what's going on there for sure. But that's the first story. Let me get into the second one here. This next one is a little bit longer. This one says, I was about 5 or 6 years old, so it was about 2001, 2002. My paternal grandmother was a sweet woman in her older years, from what I can remember of her, though it's very little. A little background. My grandmother had many illnesses as she grew older, and my mother was a registered nurse at the time and was able to care for her whenever possible. The nursing facility my grandmother was in was fairly decent to my knowledge. Right around the time I saw her still alive, something felt different to me when I would visit her. I couldn't quite tell at the time, though. Now looking back at it as an adult, I'm fairly certain I could see her soul was slowly disconnecting from her earthly form. It was like looking at a doll when I visited her for the last time. Right about this time, I had turned 6. I was sleeping in my mom's room because I was afraid of the dark. My grandpa was in the living room, waiting for my mom to come home from work. Well, around 10 or 11, I feel someone touch my shoulder, gently, and wake me up. I sat up in bed and looked, utterly confused. The person standing next to the bed was my grandmother, wearing her favorite nightgown, with little clouds and flowers all over it. I'm guessing they mean just the design on the nightgown. She sat on the bed next to me with a gentle smile on her face. I remember this so vividly to this day. I asked her, "What are you doing here, Grandma? How did you get past Grandpa?" She replied softly back in what sounded like an echo to me at the time. "I'm going to a better place, sweetheart. I will always be with you, no matter what. You will understand when you're older. I love you dearly." I was confused by what she had said back then. She gave me a goodbye kiss on the forehead, stood up from the bed, and faded in a gentle white mist. Literally a minute or so later, my mom comes home crying. I could hear her and my grandpa talking softly about my grandmother, though I didn't understand at that time. My mom had come into the bedroom, saw me awake, and was startled. She had asked me why I was awake, and I told her that Grandma told me goodbye. I found out years later that my grandmother had passed away in her sleep, and my mom was called in to the morgue to identify my grandmother. My grandmother's recorded death time was around about 11 to midnight, if I remember correctly. To this day, every now and then, I can feel my grandmother nearby. She always wore a rose-scented perfume when she was alive. It's not often, though if I'm in a dark place, she comes around to check on me. I miss her dearly and wish I had more photos of her when she was alive. So that's the end of that one. And we hear this so often in these stories of experiences, loved ones coming to visit people as or after they've passed. Sometimes even immediately, like within minutes. So That doesn't surprise me. I haven't done one of these in a while because I know it can be, in some cases, it can be hard for people, but I think it's important once in a while to share one of these because they can happen. And and yeah, it is amazing. And I've had a few experiences with my own grandmother actually that passed some years ago. Um, Coming back in dreams and other ways. So I thought that was a really good story there about a really good experience as far as the after the passing anyway. Um, and just had to share that. So again, if there ever is proof that paranormal is not all bad, that's I would say that's some right there, at least to me anyway. So let's see here. Get to this next one here. This one says, in my teenage years, my room was in the upstairs portion of our house. It was technically the finished part of our attic and was the only thing on the upper floor, but it was very small. My room was shaped like an L and only had one window at the long end of the L. My bed was in the corner of the L, facing the shorter end, but you could obviously still see the window. Directly outside my window was a huge tree and then the side of our neighbor's roof, which essentially blocks all view. One Friday night in the fall, I suddenly woke up around 2 or 3 a.m. My sleep schedule was out of whack, so it wasn't uncommon for me to wake up at this hour. But this time was different. I felt like I was almost half awake and half asleep, but was very much aware of what was happening around me. What had woke me up was a low, humming noise that seemed to be rattling my insides. I woke up facing the wall. That's when I realized that my wall was completely soaked in an orange light, which immediately alarmed me. Because of the direction my window faced, it was impossible for any lights from the street to be pouring in through my window, let alone at this intensity. My neighbor's backyard light was not this color either, and whenever it was on, it was never this bright. I nervously turned around and saw a massive orb of orange light directly outside of my window. It seemed to be emitting the humming noise I was hearing. It was so bright, at first I thought that maybe the house next to me was on fire or something. But after staring for a moment, I began to make out the circular shape. It took up the entirety of my small window and was shining so intensely that it lit up the entire long portion of my L-shaped room. After staring for maybe 20 seconds, I felt my stomach drop. My brain had finally caught up and realized that it wasn't a streetlight, wasn't my neighbor's, wasn't the sun, and couldn't even possibly be someone on the ground outside because of how bright it was. I threw the covers over my face and cowered like a baby. I didn't know if it actually became louder, but it felt like the humming got louder. I just slammed my eyes shut. I don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember not wanting to get out of my bed when I woke up in the morning. I was so shook that my legs were shaking as I eventually walked down the stairs. I didn't tell any of my family members about this because they wouldn't have believed me. To this day, that was the strangest and most unexplained thing that's ever happened to me. I'm unsure of my belief in the paranormal, but I didn't know where else to share this. If anyone else has had any similar experiences, it says to feel free to comment. And thank you for reading. So, that's quite the sight there of an orange orb. Um, the right by that window, especially with the tree and the house behind it, really kind of seems like ruling out any street lights, like they said, or the sun, even though it was 2 or 3 in the morning. Um, it seems like they really kind of went through the things that it possibly could have been, and yeah, the good old hide it under the blankets trick works every time. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, and then falling asleep, even though they don't remember when they fall asleep. Still, I've done that. I've had when I was a kid more so than now. Um, but a couple of the experiences I had, there was nothing else I could figure out to do except for to try to keep my eyes shut and go back to sleep. Or go to sleep. So, yeah, neat story there. I don't know what that was. The um, the humming is odd, and that sounds almost like a vibration that was just emanating from this light or from the area where this light was at. I wonder what that's about. I haven't heard that a ton, at least not in the stories I've covered yet. But still, that's quite the experience. I'm glad that nothing else happened. But yeah, I don't know. No, I don't know what to make of that one. So I guess I'll move on to the last one here. This one says, let's see here. This one isn't. This one is kind of short, but it's a good one. This one says, I have lived in my 79-year-old home for about 2 years now. I have sensed something here. It's not evil or ominous, just there. It feels like a male presence. I have used those uh, online wing filters and it recognized something. As has my it says a SLE detector. Now, just quick note: I don't know if they're using the right letters or name for that device, but apparently you'll see in the story here in a second. This is the kind of camera that will display the image of a stick figure of light based on the energy readings it picks up, I believe. So keep that in mind as I go through this story here. This says the one video I got that was a perfect human shape happened to be unable to watch after the first three times of viewing it. No other videos had that problem. I used that detector after seeing a shadow fly by my bedroom door. Then the other morning, at about 2:45 a.m., I woke up to three loud, distinct knocks on my bedroom door. They were loud enough to jolt me awake, though I am a very light sleeper. I lost my spot. Let's see here. Sorry about that. Scrolling messed me up. Okay, there we go. Smooth reading here tonight. Oh well. It says, I opened the door and nothing was there. I decided to tell my mom about it the next morning, and she told me that when she was home, or house sitting, I'm sorry, sleeping in my room, she had the same thing happen, but she was awake at the time. 3 loud knocks. Has anyone experienced anything of the sort, or know of it as a way of spirit communicating? I want to add that I work from home, and I often hear things from upstairs moving. It doesn't make me afraid, just aware, and like I'm being watched at times. So that's where that story ends. It sounds like there's a lot going on in that place. Um, SLS camera. Okay. Thank you. Because I was trying to figure out. I looked it up online and it was some medical thing, and I didn't think that was the one. Thank you, Mattel. I'll have to write that down so I don't forget. Yeah, the same as a Xbox Connect camera. And I knew what they were talking about. I just could not find the exact thing. Anyway, um, but it sounds like they're getting. I mean, between things that they're having experiences with, just with their own eyes and ears, it seems like there's activity there. And then the camera as well. The odd thing too is about that first video they mentioned is how that wouldn't work after a few times. Um, I wonder if there was some kind of interference on the part of whoever or whatever was there, sort of not wanting that video to be viewed anymore, in a way, um, or just it was such an intense encounter with the camera that that it messed with it somehow. Yeah, there's probably lots of versions by now, different names. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you again, Mattel. Um, but yeah, so it sounds like they're experiencing shadows, and then these figures in this camera, the sensor view there, and then sounds, and then just a presence. But the good thing is they're not afraid. So always glad to hear that. Um, sounds like if anything, they're interested in what's going on there. So, um, yeah, neat story there about all those things going on. So, um, and that's all I have for today. So, those are the stories I had planned on reading on Sunday when I wasn't able to do a show. So, thank you all for listening, as always, and I'll be back tomorrow night with more Lovecraft on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care, everyone.